welcome back. Tonight, we drift through the sleepy streets of Florence. So wherever you are, however your day has been, you have nothing to do now but rest. There are no twists tonight, nothing to follow, nothing you need to remember in the morning. A city of terracotta and warm stone, breathing slow beneath a golden dusk. We'll drift slowly, in no hurry to be anywhere at all. If these journeys help you rest, you're welcome to follow along, but only if you'd like to. And if you're listening now, leave the name of your city and the time where you are. Wherever you're listening from, you're in good company tonight. So let yourself settle, let your shoulders soften, and let your eyes close whenever they're ready. Breathe in slowly, and let it go. There's no need to stay awake for any of this. Just let the streets of Florence come to you. The magnificent art that defined the Renaissance was underpinned by a vast fortune, which itself was generated by a quiet innovation perfected in the back offices of Florentine banks. The Medici family, most notably, mastered the system of double-entry bookkeeping, a meticulous method that allowed them to track credits and debits with unparalleled precision across the continent. They also utilized bills of exchange, an early form of check, which enabled them to transfer immense fortunes without the cumbersome risk of shipping heavy gold. This financial acumen ultimately secured them the position of bankers to the Pope, and the profits from this powerful relationship were not left to accumulate in vaults. Instead, this wealth was funneled directly into the commissioning of paintings, sculptures, and architecture, making the path from an accounting ledger to a masterpiece astonishingly direct. The city's enduring beauty was therefore constructed upon a foundation of careful, quiet, and truly revolutionary mathematics, a place where abstract numbers were transmuted into tangible light and stone. In November of 1966, the Arno River, which typically flows as a calm presence through the city, swelled with terrifying speed and broke its banks, pouring into the historic streets. The floodwaters carried a thick, dark sludge of mud and heating oil that submerged everything in its path, including thousands of priceless artworks and irreplaceable ancient manuscripts. As the world watched in horror, this profound disaster catalyzed an unprecedented response from a global community of experts who flocked to Florence. Their mission was to save the city's heritage from the clinging, corrosive mud, a task which required them to invent entirely new techniques for cleaning and repairing damaged art. This desperate, collaborative effort is now recognized as the birth of modern art restoration science. While the flood was a tragedy that scarred the city deeply, it also fundamentally changed how the world preserves its history, transforming a moment of devastating loss into a lasting legacy of conservation. When you stand in the wide, open space of the Piazza della Repubblica today, Its grand arch and elegant cafes impart a distinctly 19th-century atmosphere. This expansive openness, however, was created through the deliberate erasure of 1,000 years of layered history. Before this piazza existed, this very spot was the densest, most crowded part of Florence, having been the site of the original Roman Forum, and later a teeming medieval neighborhood that housed the old market and the city's ghetto. During the 1880s, a period of ambitious urban renewal known as the Risanamento swept through Florence with the goal of creating a more modern city center. Consequently, the entire neighborhood was systematically demolished, its narrow streets and ancient buildings torn down to create the square you see today. It serves as a potent reminder that a city sometimes chooses to forget something very old in order to build something it perceives as new. The ruling Medici family grew to dislike mixing with the general populace, desiring a way to move between their home and their offices without ever touching the city streets. To solve this, they commissioned the Vasari Corridor in 1565, an elevated and enclosed passageway that was remarkably constructed in just 5 months for a royal wedding. This private path connects the Palazzo Pitti, the family's residence, to the Palazzo Vecchio, the seat of government, stretching for nearly a kilometer over the city's buildings. It even crosses the Arno River by running along the top of the Ponte Vecchio, a bridge within a bridge. From its small windows, the Grand Duke and his family could observe the common people below, entirely safe and separate from the crowds. The corridor was an unambiguous statement of power, a physical manifestation of being in the city but not truly of it. For a brief, glittering period, Florence found itself at the center of a new nation, serving as the capital of a newly unified Italy from 1865 to 1871. This elevated status triggered a massive and speculative building boom, as the city envisioned itself as a modern European capital in the vein of Paris. To realize this vision, officials ordered the demolition of the ancient medieval walls, replacing them with the wide, grand boulevards you can still see today. Speculators poured vast sums of money into new construction, anticipating that the city's growth would continue indefinitely. The dream, however, proved to be short-lived. When the capital was moved to Rome just 6 years later, the construction bubble burst almost overnight, leaving Florence with its impressive new roads, but also a deep and lasting economic depression. This period reshaped the city's physical boundaries, while leaving a scar of ambition and financial collapse. In medieval Florence, power was not derived solely from land or aristocratic titles. It grew from organized labor, consolidated into powerful guilds known as the arti. These were far more than simple trade unions, functioning instead as significant political forces that actively participated in governing the city. Each guild represented a different craft, from stonemasons to silk weavers, but the wool guild was among the most powerful of all. Its members were wealthy merchants, who traded fine Florentine cloth across Europe, accumulating immense influence and capital. They became so affluent that they undertook an incredible project, financing the construction of the magnificent dome on the city's cathedral. The success of this single industry physically paid for the city's most iconic feature, making the Duomo's dome not just a work of art, but a testament to the power of wall and the guilds that shaped the skyline. In the summer of 1944, as the Second World War was drawing to a close in Italy, the retreating German army sought to slow the Allied advance through Florence. Their strategy involved destroying all of the city's bridges across the Arno River, and one by one, the historic crossings were blown up, leaving only piles of rubble in the water. Yet, one bridge was spared this fate, the Ponte Vecchio. A local German consul named Gerhard Wolff is widely credited with persuading his superiors to save the iconic bridge, arguing that its destruction would represent an unforgivable loss to human culture. While the bridge itself was saved from demolition, the ancient buildings at either end were destroyed to create a wall of debris, effectively blocking access. The Ponte Vecchio thus stood alone, a solitary and strangely poignant survivor in a city deeply scarred by war. The neighborhood known as the Oltrarno, which translates to the Ussenon Cassation, other side of the Arno, has for centuries been the vibrant heart of Florentine craftsmanship. This distinct identity was largely cemented by a single, pragmatic decision made by the Medici family in the 16th century. After moving their official residence to the Grand Palazzo Pitti in the Oltrarno, the ruling family wanted their essential craftsmen nearby, needing furniture makers, leather workers, and jewelers close at hand. However, they did not want the associated noise and smells of these workshops cluttering the primary noble quarters of the city. Consequently, they encouraged artisans to establish their businesses in the streets surrounding the palace, a practical choice that shaped the neighborhood's character for the next 500 years. The Oltrarno became, and still remains, the district where things are made by hand. The modern Italian language, as it is spoken and understood today, was effectively born in the city of Florence. For centuries, the Italian peninsula was a patchwork of disparate dialects, where a person from Venice might struggle to understand someone from Sicily. In 1583, however, a group of scholars in Florence founded the Accademia della Crusca, with the ambitious mission of creating a pure and standardized Italian language. They chose to base this new standard on the Tuscan dialect spoken in Florence, which was the language of the great 14th century writers Dante, Petrarch, and Boccaccio. The Academy eventually published a dictionary that set the formal standard for grammar and vocabulary, effectively making the Florentine dialect the official tongue of a nation that would not be politically unified for another 300 years. The way Italy speaks began in the quiet scholarly rooms of this Florentine institution. During the Middle Ages, Florence was a city perpetually at war with itself, as two political factions, the Guelphs and the Ghibellines, fought for control for over a century. This intense rivalry was not merely political but deeply personal and violent, and it physically scarred the urban landscape. Wealthy families ceased building elegant palaces, and instead constructed tall, narrow tower houses as private fortresses for defense against their own neighbors. Whenever one faction would gain power, they would systematically demolish the towers of their defeated rivals, leading to a constantly changing and jagged skyline. The city became a forest of stone towers, some soaring high while others were cut down to stumps. To walk through the streets was to navigate a landscape shaped by family feuds and political vengeance, where the architecture itself served as a scoreboard in a long and brutal contest for power. For a brief but intense period, the artistic and material excesses of the Renaissance came to a dramatic halt, largely due to the influence of a Dominican friar named Girolamo Savonarola. He preached with fiery conviction against the city's perceived vanity and moral corruption, and his sermons were so powerful that in 1497 his followers organized a massive public burning. This event was called the Pieta, bonfire of the vanities, where thousands of objects deemed sinful were brought to the city's main square. Mirrors, cosmetics, fine dresses, musical instruments, and secular books were all thrown into the enormous pyre. It is even reported that artworks by famous masters like Botticelli were consumed by the flames. This was a moment of intense religious extremism that gripped the city, briefly pausing the artistic flourishing that had defined Florence, and representing a stark rejection of the very beauty the city had championed. Florence is a city profoundly shaped by its surrounding landscape, as it sits in a natural basin, a wide valley encircled on nearly all sides by rolling hills. While this geography is undeniably scenic, providing stunning views from elevated points like Piazzale Michelangelo, it also acted as a kind of container for centuries. The hills severely limited the city's ability to expand outwards, unlike cities situated on a flat plain that could easily sprawl. This confinement had a deep and lasting effect on its development, forcing Florence to grow inward and upward instead. As a result, streets became narrower, buildings grew taller, and public spaces were tightly woven into the dense urban fabric. This is precisely why the historic center of Florence is so remarkably compact and walkable, a direct consequence of the hills that have always held it in their gentle, scenic embrace. In the year 1348, the Black Death swept through Florence with devastating force, wiping out more than half of the city's population in a terrifyingly short period. The scale of this loss was almost unimaginable, yet this immense tragedy had a strange and paradoxical effect on the city's future. With so many people gone, the wealth of the deceased became concentrated in the hands of the survivors, as inheritances created new fortunes almost overnight. Simultaneously, the collective trauma of the plague prompted a profound shift in religious devotion, with a new focus on piety, remembrance, and the afterlife. This combination of newly acquired wealth and intensified piety fueled a fresh wave of artistic commissions, as patrons sought to fund chapels, frescoes, and paintings that honored their faith and memorialized their dead. The art of the late 14th century was thus defined by this dark and transformative moment in the city's history. On Easter Sunday in 1478, during the solemnity of High Mass, assassins struck inside the Florence cathedral itself. The targets were Lorenzo de' Medici, the city's de facto ruler, and his brother Giuliano, in an attack orchestrated by the rival Pazzi banking family in a desperate bid for power. The Pazzi conspiracy was swift and brutal, but it ultimately failed in its primary objective. While Giuliano was killed in the attack, Lorenzo managed to escape with only a minor wound. The city's response was merciless, as the conspirators were hunted down and publicly executed, their bodies displayed as a grim warning. The failed plot had the opposite of its intended effect. Rather than breaking the Medici, it solidified their power and rallied public support. In the aftermath, Lorenzo commissioned art that also functioned as political propaganda, celebrating his resilience and his family's divinely protected right to rule. When the last Medici ruler died without an heir, the leadership of Tuscany passed to a new dynasty, the House of Lorraine, who arrived in the 18th century, bringing with them the progressive ideas of the Enlightenment. These new rulers proved to be remarkably forward-thinking. One of their most significant acts was the abolition of the death penalty in Tuscany in 1786, which made it the very first state in the world to do so. Furthermore, they held a strong belief that art and knowledge should be shared with the public. The Medici had amassed an incredible private art collection within the Uffizi Palace, and the Lorraines made the monumental decision to open this collection to everyone. In doing so, they transformed a private family treasure trove into one of the world's first modern public museums, giving Florence's greatest artistic legacy to the world. When Florence decided to construct a new main train station in the 1930s, it made an exceptionally bold and forward-looking choice. The station, named Santa Maria Novella, was not built in a classical or traditional style. Instead, the city held a competition and selected a radical, modernist design. The resulting building is a masterpiece of Italian rationalism, characterized by its clean horizontal lines and a stark, functional beauty. What made the project even more audacious was its location, as it was built directly beside the beautiful Gothic church of Santa Maria Novella. This was a deliberate decision to juxtapose Italy's modern future with its celebrated historic past. The contrast remains striking, with the simple, elegant lines of the station sitting in a quiet dialogue with the ornate facade of the church, a confident statement about Florence's ability to embrace the new, without erasing the old. During the 19th century, Florence became a magnet for a large population of wealthy British and American expatriates, drawn by the city's art, history, and the romantic Tuscan landscape. This substantial community, often nicknamed the Anglo-Florentines, created their own distinct world within the city, forming exclusive social circles and favoring specific neighborhoods with views of the Arno. Their influence was so significant that they established their own parallel institutions, including Protestant churches like St. Mark's English Church, and their own newspapers, to keep up with news from home. They even have their own quiet, green oasis, the English cemetery, which serves as their final resting place. This community left a distinct cultural layer upon the city, a chapter of its history that remains visible if you know where to look for it. For much of the 20th century, the narrow, historic streets of Florence were perpetually choked with traffic, the sound of engines, and the smell of exhaust filling the air around the Duomo. In the 1980s, the city government proposed a radical idea: to ban cars from large portions of the historic center, a decision that proved to be highly controversial. Shopkeepers protested vociferously, fearing that the lack of vehicle access would destroy their businesses, and many residents complained about the inconvenience. Despite the opposition, the city pushed forward with the pedestrianization plan. The change was not immediate, but it was profound, fundamentally altering the sensory experience of Florence. The noise of traffic was gradually replaced by the murmur of conversation and the sound of footsteps on stone, transforming the city from a place to drive through into a place best experienced on foot. The story of Florence's ascent to power is inextricably linked to the story of its rival's decline. For a long period, the city of Pisa was the dominant force in Tuscany, its wealth and influence derived from its powerful harbor and control of maritime trade. Geography, however, can be a fickle ally. Throughout the 13th and 14th centuries, the Arno River began depositing enormous amounts of silt near the coast, slowly but surely choking Pisa's harbor with mud. As its vital connection to the sea was severed, Pisa's maritime strength waned, creating a power vacuum that landlocked Florence was poised to fill. Florence began to dominate the region's inland trade routes and banking networks, securing its position of power. This was a slow, quiet victory of finance over geography, as trade moved inland, and power inevitably followed. The Medici family's dominion over Florence was not an unbroken line of rule. They were, in fact, expelled from the city on 2 separate occasions. Their second exile, which began in 1494, was particularly significant because it created a political vacuum in the city. In the absence of a single ruling family, Florence re-established itself as a republic, with a more democratic-leaning government, a period of great civic pride and considerable anxiety. The city saw itself as a small bastion of liberty, surrounded by powerful tyrannical enemies. It was during this brief Republican interlude that a famous artistic commission was made. The city leaders ordered a new statue to symbolize their struggle, and the result was Michelangelo's David. This was not merely a work of art, but a potent political statement, a symbol of the Republic's courage and its fight against tyrants, both foreign and domestic. For centuries, Florence was a city physically defined by its massive defensive walls, which encircled the historic center and protected it from invaders. In the 1860s, however, when Florence briefly became the capital of Italy, the city developed a new vision for itself as a modern, open metropolis, much like Paris. The ancient walls were suddenly seen as a relic of a bygone era, an obstacle to progress and expansion. Consequently, a decision was made to tear most of them down, and in their place, the city constructed the Viali di Circonvallazione, a series of wide avenues that now ring the historic center. This act forever altered the city's relationship with its own boundaries, marking the moment Florence ceased to be a contained medieval town, and began its transformation into an expanding modern city. The boulevards still follow the path of the old walls, a ghostly memory of what was lost. The heart of Florence is a dense labyrinth of medieval streets and ancient buildings, which for centuries were constructed largely with timber frames and supports. This architectural style made the city a veritable tinderbox, living under the constant threat of a catastrophic fire that could easily spread and destroy entire neighborhoods. In response to this ever-present danger, Florence developed a practical and forward-thinking solution in the 19th century, by establishing the first organized fire brigade in Europe. This professional force was equipped with water pumps, and was rigorously trained to respond quickly to alarms. It was a simple but crucial innovation born of sheer necessity, as the city's unique architectural vulnerabilities forced it to become a pioneer in public safety. The fire brigade was a direct answer to the flammable beauty it was designed to protect. The unification of Italy in the 1860s was not merely a political event. It had a profound and lasting impact on the physical landscape of cities like Florence. For centuries, powerful religious orders had been major landowners, controlling vast monasteries and convents that were among the largest architectural complexes in the city. The new Italian state, however, was frequently at odds with the power of the Church, and passed laws suppressing many of these religious orders. Their extensive properties were seized by the government, which then had to decide what to do with these enormous empty buildings. Many were repurposed to serve secular needs, with monasteries becoming army barracks, convents being turned into government offices, and cloisters and chapels being converted into public schools. This act fundamentally altered the use and character of some of Florence's most significant historic structures. For most of its history, Florence was a landlocked city, whose wealth was derived from banking and trade that moved over roads, rather than from maritime power. This long-standing isolation was finally challenged in the 1840s, with the arrival of a transformative new technology, the railway. The ruling Grand Duke Leopold II, a firm believer in progress, funded the construction of Florence's first railway line, named the Via Leopolda. This iron road connected the isolated Tuscan capital to the bustling port of Livorno on the coast, allowing goods and people to move quickly and cheaply between the city and the sea for the first time. The railway ushered in a new age of industrial traffic and tourism, fundamentally reshaping the city's economy and breaking its geographical isolation, pulling Florence into the modern, interconnected world. If you know how to read it, the street plan of Florence serves as a layered map of its own history, with each era leaving a distinct pattern on the urban grid. In the very center, near the Piazza della Repubblica, one can find streets that are strangely straight and grid-like, the ghost of the original Roman military camp, or castrum, whose disciplined layout remains visible after 2 millennia. Surrounding this ancient core is a tangled web of tight, irregular alleys and small squares, which represents the medieval city that grew organically, without a master plan. Finally, on the outskirts of the center, you will find the wide, sweeping boulevards known as the Viali, which were built in the 19th century when Florence was the nation's capital. To walk from one neighborhood to another is to walk through time, with each turn revealing a different chapter of the city's story. The Great Red Dome of the Florence Cathedral stands as the city's most recognizable landmark. Yet what is visible from the outside reveals only half of its structural story. Brunelleschi's ingenious masterpiece is, in fact, 2 distinct domes nested one inside the other. The grand, tiled outer shell creates the iconic silhouette against the Tuscan sky, while a separate inner shell constructed of brick lies hidden beneath it, providing the true structural support. The space between these 2 layers is not a void, but rather a complex network of corridors and staircases, which can still be climbed today. As you ascend through this interstitial space, you can physically feel the elegant curve of the structure and witness the genius of its construction from within. It serves as a quiet reminder that some of the most profound feats of engineering are those intentionally concealed from public view. Sometimes, a piece of monumental architecture vanishes completely, yet its ghost remains imprinted on the city. In Florence, the distinct shape of a lost Roman amphitheater is hiding in plain sight. If you walk along the curving street named Via Torta, you are precisely tracing the path of the ancient arena's outer wall. The buildings that line this street, along with those in the nearby Piazza dei Peruzzi, were not constructed on empty land, but were built directly into the foundations of the 1st century amphitheater. The stone and arches of the Roman structure were repurposed as a base for medieval homes, and over time, the arena itself disappeared. Its elliptical shape, however, was perfectly preserved in the curve of the new buildings, a subtle clue in the street plan for anyone who knows to look for it. The Palazzo Vecchio stands as a fortress of government and art, but it is also a veritable house of secrets, its solid stone walls riddled with hidden doors and clandestine passages. These were not merely for dramatic effect, they were a practical and necessary part of life for the palace's powerful and often imperiled residents. One such passage, built by the 14th century tyrant known as the Duke of Athens, provided him with a secret escape route from his private chambers directly to the outside world. Other passages connect different apartments, allowing for discrete movements between rooms, and there is even a tiny hidden study called the Tesoretto, a secret treasury room known only to the Duke. To walk through the palace is to be aware of this hidden dimension, a second, invisible map of corridors that allowed rulers to move like ghosts through their own home. The Ponte Vecchio, with its charming jumbled shops, is now famous for its glittering displays of fine jewelry, but it was not always such a glamorous place. For centuries, these very same shops were occupied by a much different and messier trade, the city's butchers. They were located here for a very practical reason, as they could easily dispose of their animal waste by simply dumping it directly into the Arno River below. By the late 16th century, the Medici Grand Duke, who walked over the bridge daily within his private Vasari corridor, grew weary of the persistent and unpleasant smell. In 1593, he had the butchers evicted and decreed that their places should be taken by goldsmiths and jewelers, trades he considered more noble and far less offensive to the nose. This single decision transformed the bridge from a place of grit and grime to the sparkling landmark we see today. The Basilica of San Lorenzo is one of the most significant churches in Florence, having served as the parish church of the powerful Medici family, who poured immense wealth into its interior. Inside, one finds masterpieces by Donatello and Michelangelo, yet the exterior presents a strikingly different and unfinished story. The facade is a vast, rough brick wall, which feels raw and incomplete, precisely because it is. In 1518, the Medici commissioned Michelangelo to design a magnificent marble facade for their church, and he spent years on the project, creating detailed plans and sourcing the finest marble from Carrara. Due to a combination of political turmoil and financial problems, however, the ambitious project was suddenly cancelled. The marble was never delivered, and the facade was never built, leaving it as a powerful, accidental monument to a grand, unrealized dream. Tucked away near the Santa Maria Novella train station is a place where time seems to have paused centuries ago. The Officina Profumo Farmaceutica di Santa Maria Novella is one of the oldest pharmacies in the world, having been in continuous operation since the year 1221, when Dominican friars first began cultivating medicinal herbs in their monastery garden. For centuries they produced remedies, balms and perfumes for the city, and today you can still walk into the historic sales hall to purchase these famous products. The room itself is a journey into the past, filled with ornate woodwork, delicate frescoes, and the lingering scent of potpourri. Antique glass cabinets display historic pottery and distillation equipment, making it a living museum where the point of sale has remained almost unchanged for centuries, a quiet, fragrant corner in a bustling city. As you wander through the streets of Florence, you might begin to notice small, easily overlooked stone plaques embedded in the walls of various buildings. They are often at eye level but sometimes much higher, and they are not decorative. Each one bears a simple carved line and a date, 4 November 1966. These are the high water marks from the devastating flood that submerged the city, serving as quiet, ubiquitous reminders of that terrible day. Each marker indicates precisely how high the water and mud rose in that specific spot. In some neighborhoods the line is only a few feet from the ground, while in others, it is shockingly high above the doorways. Together, they form a silent, city-wide map of the disaster, a part of the city's memory written in stone, a testament to both its vulnerability and its resilience. The Ospedale degli Innocenti, with its elegant loggia, designed by Brunelleschi, is celebrated as a landmark of Renaissance architecture, but it is also a profound landmark of social history. Founded in the 15th century, it was Europe's very first orphanage, established to care for abandoned children. The institution was designed with a unique and compassionate feature set into its wall, a ruota degli esposti, or foundling wheel. This was a rotating cylindrical hatch that allowed a mother to place her infant inside from the street, ring a bell, and then leave, remaining completely anonymous. The wheel would then be turned, bringing the baby safely inside to be cared for by the institution. It was a practical and merciful solution to a heartbreaking problem, a small piece of social engineering that offered a chance at life for thousands of children. At the very apex of the Duomo, crowning the lantern, sits a massive golden ball known as the Pala. When it was first created in the 15th century by Andrea del Verrocchio, Leonardo da Vinci's teacher, it was considered a marvel of engineering, as hoisting the 2-ton copper sphere to that height was an incredible feat. Its exposed position, however, made it a natural target for the heavens. In the year 1601, during a powerful thunderstorm, the Pala was struck by lightning and came crashing down into the piazza below, leaving a deep scar in the pavement. The ball was eventually repaired and replaced, but the city chose not to forget the dramatic event. Today, if you look at the cobblestones on the north side of the cathedral, you will find a circular white marble disc, marking the exact spot where the golden ball landed, a quiet memorial to a spectacular moment. The Loggia dei Lanzi, situated in the corner of Piazza della Signoria, now functions as a magnificent open-air sculpture gallery, housing masterpieces like Cellini's Perseus with the head of Medusa. When it was constructed in the 14th century, however, it was not designed to display art. It was built by the Florentine Republic to serve as a grand public stage, its wide, soaring arches engineered for maximum visibility to the crowds gathered below. This was the ceremonial space where new leaders were sworn in, and important proclamations were read to the citizens. The sculptures were added much later, during the era of the Medici Grand Dukes, who transformed a space of civic ceremony into a showcase for their family's artistic patronage, forever changing its public meaning from political stage to private gallery. Today the Bargello is a peaceful museum, home to some of the greatest sculptures of the Renaissance, including Donatello's David, in a quiet sunlit room. The building itself, however, possesses a much darker and more violent history, which is written in its austere stone walls. As the city's oldest public building, it served many functions before becoming a museum. It was the city's first town hall, the headquarters of the police chief, a notorious prison, and a place of torture. The beautiful, open courtyard, now a pleasant space for visitors to rest, was once the site of public executions. For centuries, this building was the center of Florence's system of justice and punishment. Knowing its grim history changes how you see it, as the beauty it now holds exists in a stark, silent contrast to the suffering that once occurred within its walls. As you walk along the historic streets of Florence, you should pay close attention to the lower walls of the old palaces, where you will start to notice heavy, ornate ironwork bolted directly into the stone. There are large rings, called ferri, big enough to thread a thick rope through, and elaborate, cage-like holders for torches. These are not modern reproductions or simple decorations. They are original, functional features from the Renaissance, preserved for centuries. The rings were used for tying up horses, serving as the 15th century equivalent of a parking spot, while the torch holders were filled with burning brands at night to provide pockets of light in the dark medieval streets. These small pieces of hardware offer a direct link to the daily life of the past, quiet reminders of a time when the streets were filled with horses and illuminated by fire. The Laurentian Library, designed by Michelangelo, holds a breathtaking collection of manuscripts, yet the most stunning part of the library might be its entrance hall, or vestibule. This room is almost entirely dominated by a magnificent staircase that feels less like a functional element, and more like a massive sculpture. Michelangelo himself said he designed it to feel like a cascade of lava, pouring down from the library entrance to fill the room below with its fluid, curved steps. What is perhaps most remarkable is that Michelangelo designed this masterpiece from a distance, while he was living in Rome. He sent detailed drawings and instructions to the builders in Florence, but never actually saw the final, completed result in person. He imagined this incredible, flowing staircase, and trusted others to bring his powerful vision to life in stone. On street corners and building facades throughout Florence, you can find small, ornate shrines known as tabernacles, a common feature of the city's landscape that is deeply woven into its history. Each one is a small niche, often decorated with intricate stonework, containing a faded fresco, or a small sculpture of the Madonna and Child. These were not merely decorative. In an era before public lighting, The small lamp that often burned before the tabernacle helped to illuminate the dark and sometimes dangerous medieval streets. They also served as points of local worship, where people would stop to say a prayer or leave a small offering. These small, public altars effectively turned the entire city into a kind of open-air church, a constant reminder of a time when faith and daily life were inseparable. From any viewpoint that overlooks the Florentine skyline, one building stands out vividly from the sea of red-tiled roofs: the Great Synagogue, crowned with a beautiful, bright green dome. The color is so vibrant that it appears almost artificial against the earthy tones of the rest of the city, but this striking hue is the result of a slow, natural process. The dome is not painted green, it is sheathed in copper. When it was first constructed in the late 19th century, it would have possessed the warm, brownish glow of a new coin. Over many decades, however, constant exposure to air and rain has caused the copper to oxidize, creating the distinctive green patina known as verdigris. The dome's unique color is therefore an accident of chemistry, a slow and beautiful reaction between metal and the Tuscan air. High on a hill overlooking the city and the Arno River stands the Forte di Belvedere, a massive, star-shaped fortress built for the Medici family in the late 16th century. On the surface, its purpose seems obvious: to defend Florence from an outside attack, with its powerful bastions and strategic position, making it a formidable defensive structure. The fortress, however, was also designed with a dual purpose in mind. It was built to intimidate and control the city of Florence itself, as its cannons could be turned to face inward, a clear warning to any citizens who might consider an uprising. Furthermore, it was connected to the Palazzo Pitti, the Medici's home, via the Boboli Gardens, providing the ruling family with a secure stronghold and a safe escape route. It was a symbol of their power over the city, as much as their protection of it. For many years the Bardini Garden was a forgotten treasure, a private and overgrown hillside on the south side of the Arno River. After a long and meticulous restoration, it was finally opened to the public in the 2000s, revealing one of the city's most spectacular hidden gems. The centerpiece of the garden is a magnificent Baroque staircase, a long and dramatic flight of stone steps that climbs straight up the hill. As you ascend, the view of Florence becomes progressively more stunning with every step you take. The staircase is framed by irises and roses, with a wisteria-covered pergola running alongside it, creating a piece of architectural theatre designed to reveal the beauty of the city below. It is a quiet, beautiful place that was hidden in plain sight for decades. Beneath the arches of the Loggia del Porcellino, where vendors now sell leather goods to tourists, there is a small detail in the pavement that is very easy to miss. It is a round piece of multicolored marble, set flush with the surrounding stones, known as the Waisi, Pietra dello Scandalo, or more common, scandal stone. This marks a spot of public humiliation from Renaissance Florence, where merchants who went bankrupt and could not pay their debts were subjected to a strange and painful punishment. They were brought to this stone in the middle of the busy market, forced to drop their pants, and then made to repeatedly strike their bare buttocks onto the cold stone. This ritual, known as acculatata, was a public declaration of their failure, and the stone remains a small, strange reminder of a time when financial ruin was met with physical punishment. The eastern doors of the Florence Baptistery are a renowned masterpiece of Renaissance art, so beautiful that Michelangelo himself supposedly called them the Colle, Gates of Paradise. The sculptor, Lorenzo Ghiberti, spent 27 years of his life creating the 10 gilded bronze panels that depict scenes from the Old Testament, with an astonishing level of detail. Amidst this intricate work, Ghiberti left a very personal and very small mark on his magnum opus. If you look closely at the decorative border that frames the main panels, you will find a tiny self-portrait of the artist. His own head, bald and with a distinctive expression, peeks out from among the leaves and figures, no bigger than a thumbnail. It is a quiet, subtle signature, a way for the artist to place himself within his own creation, a humble boast hidden in plain sight for centuries. Beneath the opulent grandeur of the Medici chapels at San Lorenzo, lies a much simpler and more moving space. The crypt holds the tombs of many members of the Medici family, but the most important ones are also the most humble. Cosimo de' Medici, the great patriarch of the family, is buried here under a simple slab in the floor. As a great patron of the arts, he supported many of the finest artists of his time, including the sculptor Donatello, with whom he shared a deep bond of friendship and respect. When Donatello died, he made a specific request to be buried near his patron Cosimo. And so, in the quiet of the crypt, their simple tombs lie close to each other, a silent testament to the powerful relationship between an artist and the family that supported him, a friendship that endures even in death. The Pitti Palace is one of the largest architectural monuments in Florence. Its immense, rusticated facade, dominating the Oltrarno district. For centuries it served as the main residence of the Medici Grand Dukes, yet the palace was not originally built by them. It was started by a rival banker named Luca Pitti in the mid-15th century, whose ambition was to construct a palace that would outshine any residence owned by the powerful Medici family. He demanded larger windows, a grander courtyard, and a more imposing presence, but his ambition far outstripped his finances. The project was so enormous that he went bankrupt trying to complete it. Decades later, in a final ironic twist, the Medici family purchased the unfinished palace from the Pitti family's descendants, and then expanded it to its current, colossal size, ultimately completing the dream their rival could not afford. Like many ancient cities, Florence possesses a hidden network of waterways, buried deep beneath its modern streets. In the 18th century, long before the advent of the railway, the city sought to improve its connection to the Arno River and the sea by constructing a navigable canal called the Corridoio Leopoldino. This waterway allowed barges to bring goods from the river directly into the city's commercial districts, and was, for a time, an important piece of urban infrastructure. As the city grew and technology changed, however, the canal became obsolete, and was eventually paved over to create the modern avenues we see today. If you are driving or walking along certain streets, you are traveling directly over this buried waterway, a hidden river of stone and water sleeping just below the rumble of modern traffic. The Florence Cathedral is so densely covered in beautiful art and sculpture that it is easy to miss the small, strange details hidden upon its surface. High up on the northern wall of the Duomo, near the back, there are two small, sculpted heads of cattle, one a bull, and the other a cow, which seem a strange choice of decoration for a cathedral. A colorful local legend provides an explanation for their presence. The story goes that one of the master builders working on the cathedral was having an affair with the wife of a tailor whose shop was located across the street. As a tribute to their love and as a private joke, the builder supposedly carved the two heads and placed them on the wall, pointing the bull's horns directly at the tailor's shop as a permanent and very public symbol of his secret conquest. The baptistry of St. John is one of the oldest and most revered buildings in Florence. Its octagonal shape and green and white marble facade, an iconic part of the Piazza del Duomo. For many centuries, this building was the absolute civic and religious heart of the city, the place where every person born in Florence, including the great poet Dante Alighieri, was baptized. The building's profound importance is reflected in its stunning interior, particularly its floor, which is a masterpiece of intricate marble inlay, created in the 11th century. Among the beautiful and complex geometric patterns is a fascinating panel that depicts the signs of the zodiac, a reminder that even in this deeply religious space, there was room for the ancient science of the stars. It is a floor that has been walked upon by saints, poets, and countless generations of Florentines. In the artisan quarter of the Oltrarno, the past is not always preserved within a museum. Sometimes, it exists as just a faint whisper on a brick wall. As you explore the narrow streets of this neighborhood, you should look closely at the sides of the older buildings, where you might see the faint outlines of letters and logos from another era. These are ghost signs, hand-painted advertisements for businesses that have long since vanished, a workshop for picture frames, a brand of soap, or a local wine cellar. The paint has been faded by decades of sun and rain, rendering the words barely legible. They are accidental monuments to the neighborhood's vibrant commercial past, with each faded sign serving as a quiet testament to a family business that once thrived on that very spot, a ghostly layer of commerce still visible on the city's skin. While many associate Italian street food with pizza or panini, The quintessential Florentine version is something else entirely: lampredotto. This local specialty is made from the fourth stomach of a cow, which is slow-cooked for hours in a savory broth with herbs and vegetables until it is exceptionally tender. It is then chopped, placed in a crusty bun that is often dipped in the broth, and topped with a green parsley sauce or a spicy red sauce. You will find it sold at small stalls or lampredottai, which are scattered throughout the city and have been a fixture of Florentine life for centuries. Each stall has its own secret recipe and its own loyal following of locals, who stop by for a quick, warm, and deeply satisfying lunch. It is a taste of the real Florence, a humble and delicious tradition woven into the city's culinary rhythm. Every Easter Sunday, Florence celebrates with a unique ritual that is both solemn and spectacularly explosive, known as the Scoppio del Carro, or the explosion of the cart. This tradition dates back to the time of the First Crusade. An ornate 3-story tall cart that has been used for 500 years is carefully packed with a vast array of fireworks. It is then pulled through the city streets by a team of white oxen, decorated with flowers, and brought to the Piazza del Duomo. During the Easter Mass, the Archbishop lights a dove-shaped rocket, the colombina, which flies down a wire from the high altar, strikes the cart, and ignites the fireworks in a deafening, brilliant display. A successful explosion is said to promise a good harvest and a fortunate year for the city, a loud and joyful tradition that is uniquely Florentine. As the workday concludes in Florence, a special kind of social hour begins, a cherished city ritual known as the aperitivo. This is not merely a quick drink before dinner, but a leisurely and social affair. Sometime between 7 and 9 in the evening, bars and cafes across the city come alive with conversation. The custom is simple. You order a single drink, perhaps a Negroni, or a glass of local wine, and for the price of that drink, you also gain access to a buffet of snacks. This can range from simple bowls of olives and chips, to elaborate spreads of pasta, salads, and cured meats. The purpose is not to have a full meal, but to socialize, unwind, and whet the appetite, a gentle and delicious transition from the business of the day to the pleasures of the evening. In Florence, ordering a steak is not just having a meal, it is participating in a culinary rite of passage. The bistecca alla fiorentina is a specific and highly revered dish, which must be a particular T-bone cut from a specific breed of white cattle, the Chianina. The steak is always cut very thick, at least 2 inches, and is large enough that it is almost always shared. The preparation is deceptively simple, grilled over hot coals and seasoned only with salt and pepper. There is, however, one rule that is non-negotiable. The steak is served very rare on the inside, with a perfect seared crust on the outside. To order it cooked any other way, especially well done, is considered a sacrilege, and many traditional Florentine trattorias will simply refuse to fulfill such a request. There is an unwritten rule about drinking coffee in Florence. and it is centered on whether you stand or sit. The morning ritual for most locals is a quick and efficient affair. They walk into a corsia bar, which is what Italians call a café, and order a sia cafe, a single shot of espresso, served in a small porcelain cup. They typically drink it in 2 or 3 sips, while standing at the counter, then pay and leave, the entire process taking only a few minutes. This is the cheapest and most authentic way to have your morning coffee. If you choose to sit at one of the tables, especially in a tourist-heavy piazza, the price for the exact same coffee can easily double or even triple. The higher price is a quiet tax on time and comfort, as the true local rhythm is to stand. Every June, the normally peaceful Piazza Santa Croce is transformed into a sand-covered arena for a brutal and historic sport known as Calcio Storico Fiorentino. This is a tradition that dates back to the 16th century, a violent forerunner to modern football. 4 teams, each representing one of the city's 4 historic quarters, compete for neighborhood glory. The game itself is a chaotic mix of soccer, rugby and wrestling, where 27 players on each side attempt to get the ball into the opposing team's net by any means necessary. Punching, kicking and tackling are all permitted, making it an exhausting and deeply passionate spectacle. For the players, it is not just a game but a matter of honor and civic pride, a living connection to the city's tough and competitive Renaissance past. On the other side of the Arno River, in the Oltrarno district, the rhythm of the day is set by the sounds of creation. This neighborhood is the heart of Florentine craftsmanship, filled with small workshops, or bottei, where artisans practice trades that have been passed down for generations. As you walk the streets, you can hear the distinct tap of a hammer on leather, see the bright sparks from a jeweler's torch, or smell the rich scent of wood and glue from a furniture restorer's studio. Many of these workshops are on the ground floor with their doors open to the street, allowing you to peek inside and see shoemakers, bookbinders and papermakers at their benches. It is a neighborhood where things are still made by hand, with skill and patience, a living museum of traditional craft in the heart of the modern city. At the Mercato Nuovo, a covered market not far from the Ponte Vecchio, there is a famous bronze statue of a wild boar, known affectionately as Il Porcellino, the little piglet. Over the years, a specific ritual has developed around him, performed by visitors from all over the world for good luck, and to ensure a future return to Florence. First you must rub the boar's snout, which has been polished to a brilliant gold by the touch of countless hands. Then, you place a coin in the boar's mouth, and let it drop, hoping that it will fall through the grate below his feet and into the water. If your coin successfully falls through, legend says your wish will come true, and you will one day come back to this beautiful city. It is a small, hopeful tradition, a simple act of faith in a city of grand gestures. As the heat of the day begins to fade, and the sky softens over the Arno, a gentle rhythm takes over the streets of Florence. This is the tonna, passeggiata, the traditional evening stroll, which is not about exercise or reaching a specific destination, but is rather a slow, leisurely walk for the simple pleasure of walking. Florentines of all ages participate in this ritual, as families with children, young couples and elderly friends all emerge to enjoy the cool air. They might stroll along the banks of the river, cross one of the historic bridges, or wander through the main piazzas. The purpose is to see and be seen, to greet friends, to chat, and to feel a part of the city's social fabric. It is a graceful and unhurried ritual, a moment to slow down and simply be present in the beauty of the city as day turns into night. Florence has given many gifts to the world, from Renaissance art to the modern Italian language, but one of its sweetest claims to fame is gelato. The city is widely said to be the birthplace of this iconic frozen dessert, with its invention credited to Bernardo Buontalenti, a 16th-century artist and architect, who created a creamy frozen dessert for a Medici court banquet. This legacy is a vibrant, living tradition in Florence today, where it seems there is a Seuha gelateria on nearly every corner. The best of these establishments pride themselves on using fresh, natural ingredients, competing to create the most intense and authentic tastes, from rich Sicilian pistachio to bright Amalfi lemon. To have a gelato in Florence is not just a treat, it is a way of participating in a delicious, 500-year-old story. The San Lorenzo market is a place of two distinct and contrasting rhythms. Outside, surrounding the main building, a sprawling street market caters mostly to tourists, with vendors in countless stalls selling leather goods, scarves and souvenirs in a loud, bustling scene. If you step inside the main building, the Mercato Centrale, the atmosphere changes entirely. The ground floor is a traditional food market, where locals have shopped for generations, with butchers, fishmongers and vendors selling fresh produce, local cheeses and cured meats. Upstairs, the rhythm shifts again into a modern, bustling food hall, where you can sample dishes from various high-end vendors, and gather at communal tables. It is a place where the old and new rhythms of Florentine food culture meet and merge under a single iron and glass roof. Twice a year, a different kind of art takes over Florence, and the city's rhythm shifts to the beat of global style for Pitti Uomo. This event is one of the world's most important trade shows for men's fashion, and for a few days each January and June, the city is filled with elegantly dressed men from all over the world. The main events take place within the 16th century Fortezza di Basso, but the real show often happens on the streets, as the plazas and courtyards of Florence transform into an open-air runway. The attendees, famous for their impeccable and often flamboyant style, pose for photographers in a phenomenon known as peacocking. For a brief period, the city, known for its Renaissance masterpieces, becomes the global capital of the well-dressed man. In the quiet workshops of the Oltrarno, a magical and mesmerizing craft known as carta marmorizzata, or Florentine paper marbling, is still practiced. It is a quiet and delicate process that begins with a shallow tray filled with a thick viscous liquid made from seaweed. The artisan then drops different colors of pigment onto the surface, where they float and expand into circles. Using special combs and styluses, the artisan carefully swirls and pulls the pigments, creating intricate, peacock-like patterns that are unique every time. When the pattern is perfect, a sheet of paper is carefully laid on the surface, and then lifted off a moment later, having absorbed the beautiful, swirling design. It is a craft that requires a steady hand and a patient heart, a way of painting on water to create something permanent and beautiful. On the evening of September 7th, the streets of Florence are filled with a soft, colorful glow during the Festa della Rificolona. Children and their families parade through the city carrying rificolone, which are brightly colored paper lanterns of all shapes and sizes, illuminated from within by candles or small lights. The festival has its roots in a much older tradition, celebrating the arrival of farmers and merchants from the countryside. They would travel to Florence by night to be at the market in Piazza Santissima Annunziata for a major feast day, lighting their way with simple lanterns on long poles. The city children would often make fun of the simple country folk, Sara Fiorucchioloni, but over time this has evolved into a joyful celebration of light that connects the modern city to its rural past. Florence's artistic legacy is not confined to painting and sculpture. The city has also been a center for musical innovation for centuries, a tradition celebrated every spring with the Maggio Musicale Fiorentino. Founded in 1933, it is one of Europe's oldest and most prestigious classical music festivals, filling the city with the sound of world-class performances for several weeks. The festival features a season of grand operas, symphony concerts and ballets, primarily hosted at the modern and acoustically superb Florence Opera House. This annual event is a direct continuation of the city's long history of pushing artistic boundaries, serving as a reminder that Florence is not just a city that preserves the past, but one that continues to create new art at the highest level. As summer fades into autumn across Tuscany, the rhythm of the Florentine kitchen undergoes a distinct change. The menus in local restaurants and the stalls at the market begin to celebrate the arrival of treasures from the forest floor. This is the season for porcini mushrooms, with their rich, earthy flavor, which appear in pasta dishes, stews, or simply grilled with garlic and parsley. The most prized arrival of all, however, is the truffle. The hunt for these fragrant fungi, especially the elusive and intensely aromatic white truffle, is a secretive and cherished rural tradition, involving specially trained dogs. In Florence, the delicate shavings of a fresh truffle can transform a simple plate of pasta into a luxurious feast, a seasonal rhythm that connects the city's sophisticated palate to the ancient soil of the surrounding hills. Before clocks became commonplace, the rhythm of the day in Florence was marked by a different kind of sound, the constant ringing of church bells. This is the city's oldest and most enduring soundscape, a presence that has echoed through the streets for centuries. There are hundreds of bells in the city's many churches, and they do not all sound the same. Each major bell has its own name and its own specific, resonant tone. Their ringing is not random but follows a prescribed pattern, calling the faithful to prayer, announcing important events, and marking the passing of the hours. Even today, if you stand in a quiet piazza, you can hear the bells from different churches answering each other across the rooftops, a constant, rhythmic reminder of the city's deep ecclesiastical history. As Christmas approaches, a little piece of Germany arrives in the heart of Renaissance Florence, transforming the grand Piazza Santa Croce. The normally open space in front of the famous basilica is filled with the wooden stalls of a traditional German-style Christmas market, a tradition imported from Kassel, one of Florence's twin cities. The air fills with the scent of mulled wine, cinnamon and grilled sausages, while visitors browse for handmade ornaments, woolen hats, and other crafts. It is a slightly surreal and charming sight to see this Northern European tradition set against the backdrop of a magnificent Italian Gothic church. For a few weeks, the piazza's rhythm changes from one of history and art to one of festive cheer and holiday shopping, bringing a different kind of warmth to the winter nights. June 24th holds a special significance in Florence, as the feast day of St. John the Baptist, the city's beloved patron saint. The day is a public holiday filled with events that blend religious devotion with civic pride, including historical parades with participants in Renaissance costumes, and the final match of the Calcio Storico. The true highlight of the day, however, arrives after dark. The entire city seems to gather along the banks of the Arno, or in viewpoints in the surrounding hills, all waiting for the Fuochi di San Giovanni, the fireworks of St. John. A massive and spectacular fireworks display is launched from Piazzale Michelangelo, exploding in color across the sky, and reflecting in the dark water of the river below. It is a shared moment of collective joy and wonder for the whole city. Just behind the massive Pitti Palace lies a world with a completely different rhythm, slower and quieter than the bustling city streets. The Boboli Gardens, a vast green space that was once the private backyard of the Medici family, now serves as a place of peaceful retreat for locals and visitors alike. On a quiet weekday you will find Florentines who have come to escape the crowds, reading books on shaded stone benches, walking the long gravel paths, and listening to the sound of fountains instead of traffic. The gardens are a carefully curated version of nature, with manicured lawns, ancient statues, and hidden grottos. It is a place to wander without a destination, a chance to step into a different, more contemplative rhythm, just a few steps away from the noise of the city. Although the modern Italian language was born in Florence, the local dialect still possesses its own unique and recognizable flavor. Its most famous feature is known as the Gorgia Toscana, or Tuscan throat, which refers to a specific way of pronouncing certain consonants. The hard gara U sound, as in casa, house, is often aspirated, coming out as a soft, breathy H sound, almost like hassa. This can be startling to other Italians, and the classic example given is the brand name Coca-Cola, which a true Florentine might pronounce as Coca-Cola. It is a subtle linguistic quirk, a softening of the language that is instantly recognizable, and a classic sign that you are talking to someone whose accent is rooted in the very heart of Tuscany. The culture of wine in Florence extends far beyond the famous Chianti from the nearby hills. It is also about a specific kind of place, the neighborhood, enoteca, or wine bar. These are typically small, intimate establishments, often run by a knowledgeable and passionate owner, where locals gather after work. The rhythm is relaxed and conversational. You don't just order a generic glass of red or white. You have a discussion with the owner, who might suggest a wine you have never heard of from a small, local producer. The wine is often paired with a simple but high-quality plate of cheese, cured meat, or bread with olive oil. It is a place for quiet conversation and appreciation, a more thoughtful and personal way to experience the region's most famous product. The University of Florence does not have a single enclosed campus. Instead, its faculties and departments are spread throughout the city. This distribution gives certain neighborhoods, such as San Marco, a distinctly youthful and intellectual rhythm. The streets here are filled with students rushing to and from classes, and the local cafes have a different energy, often filled with young people studying with their laptops open and textbooks spread across the tables. The life of the neighborhood is intrinsically tied to the academic calendar, bustling during the semester, and growing much quieter during the holidays. This constant flow of students brings a dynamic, forward-looking energy to the ancient streets, a rhythm of learning and discovery that keeps the old city feeling young. In many Florentine kitchens and restaurants, the tradition of making pasta by hand remains a daily ritual, a process that is both simple in its ingredients and deeply skilled in its execution. You can often witness this for yourself, as many establishments feature a sfoglina, a female pasta maker, at work in the front window. She stands at a large wooden board dusted with flour, and with a long rolling pin, she expertly rolls out a large thin sheet of fresh pasta dough made from just flour and eggs. She works the dough until it is almost transparent, then cuts it into tagliatelle, fills it for ravioli, or shapes it into tortellini. It is a mesmerizing and time-honored process, a quiet performance of a delicious and fundamental culinary art. The Arno River serves as the backbone of Florence, and the city maintains a quiet, daily relationship with its waters. In the early mornings, you can see the first light of day catch the water, as members of local rowing clubs practice their strokes, their sleek boats gliding silently across the calm surface, in a graceful and disciplined ballet. During the day, you might see fishermen casting their lines from the banks, patiently waiting for a bite in the slow-moving current. As evening falls, the bridges that span the river become romantic destinations, where couples and friends lean on the stone walls for quiet conversations, watching the city's lights reflect in the dark water. The river is not just a geographical feature, it is a stage for the city's daily rhythms, a constant, flowing presence in the life of Florence. If you look closely at the stone walls of old Florentine palaces, you might spot a curious architectural feature. Small, arched hatches just large enough for a bottle to pass through. These are the bouchette del vino, or wine windows. For centuries, noble families with country estates that produced more wine than they could consume used these little windows to sell their surplus directly to the public. A customer would knock on the wooden shutter, pass their empty flask and some coins through the opening, and receive it back filled with wine. This charming and very old tradition saw a brief surprising revival during the social distancing requirements of 2020, as a few businesses used their ancient wine windows to serve customers once again. It was a taste of the past, perfectly suited for a strange present. Upon entering the Florence Cathedral, if you turn around and look up at the wall above the main entrance, you will find one of the strangest and most beautiful clocks in the world. Painted by the artist Paolo Uccello in 1443, it initially appears to be a decorative fresco, but is in fact a fully functional astronomical clock. The clock face is divided into 24 hours instead of the customary 12, with the 24th hour positioned at the bottom. Most strangely of all, its single golden hand moves counterclockwise. This system, known as italic hour, measured time from the sunset of the previous day, representing a completely different way of conceptualizing the passage of time. It is a beautiful and complex work of art that reminds us that even time itself can be measured differently. When you sit down for a meal in Florence, a basket of bread will almost certainly be brought to your table, but upon taking your first bite, you might be surprised by its blandness. This is because traditional Tuscan bread is baked, without any salt. This custom is not a matter of culinary preference, but of deep-rooted history, dating back to a bitter rivalry in the 12th century between Florence and the nearby city of Pisa. Pisa controlled the region's salt flats and the port where salt was imported, and to hurt their rivals, they placed an exorbitant tax on it. The proud Florentine bakers refused to pay the high prices, and instead adapted by learning to make their bread without salt. Though the feud is long over, the tradition remains, and the unsalted bread is now a point of regional pride. On the stone wall of the Palazzo Vecchio, near the corner where the Uffizi Gallery begins, there is a piece of historic graffiti, a small, crudely carved profile of a man's face. It is known as L'Importuno di Michelangelo, which translates to Michelangelo's nuisance, or the bothersome man. The charming legend behind it claims that Michelangelo was often stopped in the piazza by a particularly boring man who would talk endlessly about his problems. One day, while being cornered by this man, Michelangelo grew so bored that he turned his back, took out his chisel, and discreetly carved the man's profile into the palace wall. While there is no proof the story is true, it is a wonderful thought, a small act of artistic impatience from a genius, hidden in plain sight on the wall of City Hall. Michelangelo's statue of David is perhaps the most famous sculpture in the world, a figure we are accustomed to seeing at eye level. This was not, however, the original plan for its display. The statue was first commissioned to be placed high up on the exterior of the Florence Cathedral, intended as one of many statues of prophets meant to decorate the roofline of the Duomo. From that vantage point, it would have been seen from a great distance, a powerful silhouette against the sky. When the statue was finally finished in 1504, it was immediately clear that it was something extraordinary. The city leaders formed a committee, which included artists like Leonardo da Vinci, who concluded that the statue was too perfect to be placed so far from view. They instead chose a much more prominent location in front of the Palazzo Vecchio, the seat of government. Embedded in the ancient stone wall of the church of Santa Maria Maggiore is a strange and easily missed detail. A small, weathered stone head of a woman with a simple hairstyle. Known to locals as Berta, her origin is a mystery, though a dark legend offers one explanation. The story says that a man was being led through the streets to his execution, when a woman named Berta looked out her window and mocked him, shouting that he would never reach the gallows. A holy man accompanying the prisoner then cursed the woman for her cruelty, declaring that she would never move her head from that spot again. Instantly she was turned to stone, and her head remains there today, a small, strange warning against speaking ill of the condemned. The Ponte Santa Trinita is often called the most beautiful bridge in Florence, its elegant, flattened arches, seeming to skim gracefully over the surface of the Arno. The bridge we see today is a faithful reconstruction of the original, which was destroyed by the retreating German army in 1944, but rebuilt with historical precision. Its design is special because the bridge, first built in the 16th century, is the first known example of the catenary arch in bridge construction. A catenary arch has the shape of a hanging chain flipped upside down, a form found in nature that is incredibly strong, because it distributes weight perfectly, without any shear stress. This gives the bridge both its distinctive beauty and its remarkable strength, a masterpiece of engineering disguised as a work of art. In the center of the beautiful Piazza della Santissima Annunziata stands a large equestrian statue of Grand Duke Ferdinando I de' Medici. While it is a typical monument to a ruler, the sculptor, Pietro Tacca, added a strange and playful detail to its base. On the back of the pedestal, facing the church, is a sculpted swarm of bees arranged in a circle around a queen bee, symbolizing the Grand Duke and his loyal subjects. There is, however, a trick involved. It is said to be nearly impossible to count the bees correctly without getting confused, as their arrangement is designed to draw your eye away and make you lose your place. Local guides claim there are 91 bees in total, but the real fun is in the trying, a small frustrating game left for us by a clever 17th century sculptor. The facade of the Pitti Palace is a vast and imposing wall of rusticated stone that speaks of power and permanence. If you know where to look, however, you can find a small, strange scar from a long-forgotten conflict. Just to the right of the main entrance, a dark cannonball is visibly embedded in the pale yellow stone, lodged firmly in the wall. It is said to have been fired during a 16th century siege of the city, when the palace was still relatively new. For some unknown reason, the cannonball was never removed, and was simply left there, a tiny violent punctuation mark on the grand facade. It is a strange and subtle reminder that even this great palace was once vulnerable, a small piece of shrapnel from history that has become a permanent part of the architecture. The symbol of Florence is the lily, or riglio, which you can see everywhere on flags, manhole covers, and public buildings. The modern emblem is a red lily on a white field, but this was not the city's original coat of arms. The first emblem was the reverse, a white lily on a red field. The colors were swapped in the 13th century during the violent struggles between the Guelph and Ghibelline factions. The killers who were loyal to the Holy Roman Emperor used the white lily on a red field, while the Guelphs loyal to the Pope used the red lily on a white field. In 1266, when the Guelphs won a decisive victory and took permanent control of the city, they celebrated by inverting the colors of the city's flag. The red lily has been the symbol of Florence ever since. In the middle of the Piazza San Felice, within the Oltrarno district, stands a strange and lonely object, a single, solitary stone column in the middle of the street. Cars and scooters must carefully navigate around this ancient obstacle, which looks completely out of place, a piece of ancient history dropped into a modern traffic pattern. The column is a relic from a 2nd century Roman cemetery that was once located on this site. As the piazza was paved and developed over the centuries, most of the cemetery was built over and forgotten, but for some unknown reason, this one column was left standing. It serves no structural purpose, and is simply there, a silent and slightly inconvenient witness to the 2,000 years of history that lie just beneath the asphalt. Some street names in Florence are simple and descriptive, while others are more evocative and mysterious. One small street near the city center is called Via delle Belle Donne, which translates to Street of the Beautiful Women. While it sounds charming and romantic, the historical reality behind the name is likely a bit more complicated. Historical records and city law suggest that the street was not named for its beautiful residents in general, but rather for a prominent and well-regarded brothel that was located there in the 14th century. The beautiful women were, in fact, the courtesans who worked on this street. The name is a polite and slightly poetic euphemism, a small piece of the city's complex social history, hidden within a pretty name. The grand fountain of Neptune in Piazza della Signoria was not an immediate success upon its unveiling in 1565. The Florentines, who possessed very high artistic standards, were not impressed, nicknaming the large white statue of Neptune Il Biancone, or the Big White One. Even Michelangelo was critical, supposedly remarking that the sculptor, Bartolomeo Ammanati, had wasted a good piece of marble. The sculptor was deeply stung by this widespread criticism, and legend says he got his quiet revenge. At the base of the fountain, among several bronze satyrs and fauns, if you look closely at the nostril of one of the satyrs, you can see a small sad face carved into the metal. It is said to be a hidden self-portrait of the disappointed sculptor, a tiny expression of his sadness at the public's reaction to his work. The Florence Cathedral is not only a place of worship, but also a massive and surprisingly precise scientific instrument. High in the lantern of the dome, nearly 100 meters above the ground, there is a small bronze plate with a hole in it, which serves as a gnomon. On the floor of the cathedral below, in the Chapel of the Cross, a large marble disc is set into the pavement as part of a long meridian line. For a few weeks each year, around the summer solstice, something remarkable occurs. At midday, a single ray of sun shines through the small hole in the lantern, travels down through the vast dark space of the cathedral, and forms a perfect circle of light on the floor. On the day of the solstice, this circle of light perfectly illuminates the marble disc, a celestial event made possible by one of the largest solar instruments in the world. Not far from the Duomo, on a wall in the Piazza della Palatole, a simple stone plaque marks a spot known as the Sasso di Dante, or Dante's stone. According to a persistent local legend, this is the very spot where the great poet Dante Alighieri would often sit in the afternoons to contemplate the world and watch the early stages of construction on the new cathedral. A famous anecdote tells of a man asking Dante what he had eaten for lunch, to which he replied, "An egg." A year later, the same man saw Dante in the same spot and asked, "With what?" Dante, without missing a beat, replied, "With salt and bread." The stone is a humble monument to the poet's powerful memory, and his deep connection to his beloved, and soon-to-be-lost, city. The word quarantine feels distinctly modern, yet its origins are ancient, and can be traced to the maritime practices of Italian city-states like Venice and Florence during the Black Death. In the 14th and 15th centuries, these cities developed a crucial public health measure to try and stop the relentless spread of the plague. When ships arrived from ports where disease was suspected, they were not allowed to dock immediately. Instead, they were required to anchor at a distance and wait for a period of 40 days. The Italian word for 40 is quaranta, and this period of isolation came to be known as a quarantena. If the crew was still healthy after those 40 days, they were finally allowed to come ashore. This medieval practice of disease control gave us the modern term we still use today. The Gucci Garden is a fashionable and relatively new addition to Florence's museum scene, a multi-level experience created by the famous fashion house that features a boutique, a restaurant, and exhibition rooms. The location of this temple to modern luxury, however, is what makes it so fascinating. It is housed in the historic Palazzo della Mercanzia, a 14th-century building that once served as the commercial heart of the Florentine Republic. This palace housed the city's commercial court, where trade disputes were settled, and guild regulations were enforced. Today, instead of merchants and lawyers, its halls are filled with high-fashion mannequins and elaborate floral wallpaper, creating a strange and beautiful merger of two very different kinds of power and prestige: the medieval laws of commerce and the modern laws of style. Finding a specific address in Florence can be a uniquely confusing experience, even with a detailed map, because the city uses a strange and dualistic street numbering system. There are not one, but two sets of numbers running concurrently on every street. Residential addresses for homes and apartments are marked with numbers written in blue or black on a white plate. Commercial addresses for shops, restaurants, and businesses, however, use numbers written in red. These two numbering systems are completely independent of each other, which means that number 23 in black and number 23 in red can be two entirely different locations, often hundreds of feet apart on the very same street. It is a system that makes perfect sense to locals, but can be a source of endless confusion for visitors trying to find their dinner reservation. The Stibbert Museum is unlike any other museum in Florence, as its focus is not on the Renaissance but on the vast and bizarre collection of a single eccentric 19th-century man named Frederick Stibbert. After inheriting a great fortune, he spent his life filling his villa with over 50,000 objects that captured his interest. The collection is wildly eclectic, but the museum is most famous for its cavalcade. This is a breathtaking and slightly surreal room, filled with a long procession of fully armored knights on horseback. There are life-sized models of European knights in gleaming plate armor, Ottoman warriors with curved swords, and Japanese samurai in full battle dress. It is a strange and wonderful obsession made real, a private army of silent warriors from across history, all gathered in a single spectacular room. The Vasari Corridor is a private, elevated passageway that allowed the Medici family to walk unseen through the city. As it passes over the Ponte Vecchio, it features a series of small, round windows that look down onto the bridge and the river, offering the Grand Duke a panoramic view. According to popular belief, however, these windows also served a more sinister purpose. They were reportedly cut so that Cosimo I Medici could spy on the people below, secretly watching the merchants and citizens on the bridge and perhaps even listening to their conversations as they echoed up from the street. This would have allowed him to remain aware of any potential plots or dissent, making the windows a tool of surveillance, a way for the ruler to keep a watchful and invisible eye on his subjects. In medieval Florence, powerful families built tall towers as symbols of their strength, but when the Florentine Republic was established, the new government sought to break their power by forcing most of these private towers to be demolished or lowered. One small stout tower, however, was spared, the Torre della Castagna, or Chestnut Tower. It was not demolished, because it served a special civic purpose. Before the Palazzo Vecchio was constructed, this tower was where the priors, the city's highest magistrates, would meet to discuss government business. It is said that they would often cast their votes using chestnuts, dropping them into different bags to indicate their choice. The tower's humble name and its survival are a direct link to the earliest days of Florence's Republican government. The Florentine skyline is a famous composition of domes and towers, but one of the most distinctive, yet often overlooked, is the bell tower of the Badia Fiorentina. This ancient church and abbey, located in the heart of the city near the Bargello, has a bell tower with a strange and unique architectural feature. It begins with a hexagonal base, but as the tower rises, it cleverly transitions to a square top. This shift in geometry is an unusual and difficult architectural feat that makes the tower stand out from the more conventional square bell towers common throughout Italy. It is a subtle oddity, a small piece of architectural cleverness that adds a unique note to the city's familiar skyline, a tower that doesn't quite follow the rules. The idea of a public library, a place where anyone can go to read and study, seems entirely normal to us today, but in the 15th century, it was a truly revolutionary concept. The very first public library in Europe was opened in Florence, located in the convent of San Marco, and funded by the great patron Cosimo de' Medici. He commissioned the architect Michelangelo to design a beautiful light-filled space to house a vast collection of manuscripts that he had acquired. Crucially, this library was not just for the monks of the convent, but was made available to scholars and the public at large. It was a deliberate act of patronage designed to advance learning and knowledge, and the library, with its graceful arches and rows of wooden reading desks, is still there today, a quiet and beautiful monument to a radical idea. Just a short walk from the Palazzo Vecchio stands a grand building with a series of large, elegant arches on its ground floor, known as the Loggia del Grano. It was built in the 17th century by an architect of the Medici court to serve as the city's public grain market, its open arches allowing for easy circulation of air and people. For centuries it was a bustling center of commerce, but as the city changed, the building's purpose changed with it. In the 20th century, the grain market was closed, and the open arches were filled in with glass and stone, as the building was converted first into a cinema, and later a theater. You can still clearly see the grand structure of the original loggia, but its function has been completely transformed, a piece of civic architecture rewritten for a new audience. The Uffizi Gallery is a vast and complex building, originally constructed as government offices, which grew over time by incorporating existing structures into its design. One of these absorbed buildings was a medieval tower called the Torre della Pulce, or the Tower of the Flea. Today, it is seamlessly integrated into the Uffizi complex, but its strange name hints at a forgotten story. No one knows for sure why it was called the Tower of the Flea. One theory suggests it was owned by a family with the surname Pulci, which means fleas in Italian. Another, more colorful legend claims the tower was once infested with a plague of fleas. Whatever the reason, the name stuck, a strange and slightly undignified title for a piece of one of the world's most famous art galleries. Our walk through Florence is coming to an end. Wherever you've drifted to, you don't need to come back. There's nothing more to listen for tonight. Sleep well.